Hi friend, I just wanted to take a minute to invite you to our Lash Biz Babes Experience 2026. This is a one-day all online event happening on May 2nd, and our theme for the year is going all in. We are shaking things up and doing it differently than anyone ever has before. This is going to be an all online event as usual, but it's going to be 100% a curated journey throughout your day as we guide you through the mindset, strategy, and passion needed to go all in on your business to make it your best year in business yet. All lash artists, estheticians, and beauty professionals are invited to join us. There will be guided sessions, interactive workshops, a panel discussion, and big giveaways happening throughout that whole day. And tickets are on sale now for only $199. Payment plans are available. Let's go all in on our businesses for 2026 together. All the details and the link for tickets are down in the show notes below. I would love to have you join us online in May. Welcome to Lash Biz Babes, the podcast for solo beauty business owners who want to build a full clientele and create a business and life that they truly love. My name is Erica. I'm your host. I'm a lash artist turned beauty business coach, lash educator, and social media manager for salons and beauty businesses. I'm so happy that you're here. Let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of Lash Biz Babes. My name is Erica. I'm your host, and this week we are going to be talking about how I feel the lash industry is in desperate need of fresh voices to help shape it moving forward. And I know that I'm not the only one who shares this sentiment or who feels this way, because I have had this conversation with so many different lash artists and educators so many different times over really like the last 2 to 3 years. I heard some of this sentiment before that, but especially in the last few years specifically, just heard over and over how there's a lot of fatigue around how it's the same people over and over again that are speaking at events and teaching at classes. It's like they all just go to which there's nothing wrong with this. And please don't get me wrong. We have a lot of really incredible educators and leaders, and I'm not like shit talking anyone or like trying to say bad about any of them. They are all great people. But the thing about it is that most of them have gone from course to course to course to event to event to event. And it's the same people in the same speaker circuit and loop. And you hear the same thing from the same educator no matter what event you go to. Sometimes they change up their topics and all of that, which is great. And I feel like that's very refreshing to have them speaking on a new topic. But it kind of got to the point for a while that it didn't really matter what event you went to. That was like a bigger event, not just like a local event. You were hearing from the same people on the same presentations, and you really weren't learning anything new. And this was happening a lot with the education space and the events. And there's just a lot of fatigue around it. A lot of lash artists are tired of it always being the same people over and over again. And like I said, don't get me wrong. It's not because they aren't wonderful or amazing people and educators and leaders. They absolutely are. But there's just a big desire in the industry for new voices, fresh perspectives, more diversity, and real experiences from real lash artists who have done the hands-on work to successfully grow a lash business from the ground up. Those are the people that, specifically for me, in my opinion, I am the most interested in hearing from and learning from, are those who have actually been lash artists themselves, who have actually built a clientele, who have done the work. And especially in the sense of like, for myself, I have always identified as like a solo lash artist. That's been my experience, like being solo, not having a team, not having a business partner, not having people helping you do things for the business or running the business side of things for you. When you're solo, you have all of the hats on for yourself. And like, I'm sure most of you listening to this relate to that, where like you have to do the services for clients, the marketing, the cleaning, the inventory, the taxes, the bookkeeping. Like you are doing every single piece of your business, and you don't have necessarily like support within your business to be helping you do those tasks. And it's just a much different experience than when you do have a team or like you're a salon owner. Like there's a lot of really great salon owners in the industry. But it's like they have teams, they have lash artists, they have support within their business. They can delegate out tasks. Like I'm not saying it's not hard to be a salon owner. It absolutely is. I have so much mad respect for them, but it's just a different experience building a lash business from the ground up when you are solo. So for me, I've always been, and everyone's different on this, but for me, I've always been most personally interested in learning from those who have done it from the ground up by themselves because it is such a different experience. And you don't know how strong and capable you are until you find yourself having to book clients and grow your business to pay the bills and having that external motivation and like that fire under your butt to grow. Because if you don't do it, who will? Nobody. Like your business isn't going to grow unless you're the one doing it. You don't have that support within your business. I want to hear from people who have been solo. And that's so many different lash artists in the industry. Most lash artists are solo. There's obviously lash artists out there who work in salons or lash studios, or maybe who own or have a lash studio or salon, or they have a team, and that's super wonderful. But this podcast specifically, I wanted to start it for solo lash artists because I know what it's like to be in that position. I know what it's like to be a mom and have to run your business and have kids and you like partner working out of state like that. When I built my lash business, mainly like my clientele up, my husband was working out of state. I had a toddler and a newborn by myself trying to figure out how do I grow a lash business on my own in a new area. The experience of that is so much different. And I think that there's just such a desire for fresh voices and perspectives because we all have such different experiences with building a lash business, and we have such different resources and positions in life where we start. Some of us have spousal support for their financial side of things, right? So we're not necessarily responsible to pay all of the bills, and like our business isn't supporting our personal lifestyle fully. Or some of us are single moms. Some of us have 9 to 5s or 8 to 5s outside of that. Some of us had the capital and the financial resources to get started, and some of us had to bootstrap our way up from the ground up. And like just everyone has such different experiences. We come from different backgrounds, from different childhoods, from different areas of the world where there's different resources or not, and different advantages or not. And so it's just so refreshing to hear things from a different perspective. And I think that's just like, especially in the last year or even really in the last 6 months, I feel like there's just this really big need for new voices, fresh voices who are sharing their experiences, who are sharing their opinions and their stories and what they've gone through, how they've built their lash business. And truly, the lash industry is ever evolving. And we just have so much incredible talent in all walks and corners of it. And so that's just such a huge reason why I do feel like the lash industry is in desperate need of fresh voices to help shape it moving forward. So I posted about this on Instagram, got a lot of good feedback, a lot of people who had agreed. I wanted to share a couple of the comments on it though, just because I'm clearly not the only one who feels this way. I knew others felt this way, and I knew that because I've had these conversations. I've talked to lash artists about this. I've gotten the DMs from people who are like, I wish there was different people speaking at events. Like it's always the same people who are getting the opportunities, who are getting the platforms to share their stories and their experiences and to teach and to lead. And just people really wanting to hear from new voices. I made a post and it just literally said, the lash industry is in desperate need of fresh voices to help shape it moving forward. And the caption was a lot about, what I just talked about, how I've had this conversation a lot, how there's fatigue around it. People want new voices, fresh perspectives, more diversity, real experiences from like actual lash artists. One of the comments said, so much truth here. It's also why I take a break and go to different conferences and smaller regional conferences too. I was getting the same info and needed fresh inspiration. So I totally agree with that. I think local events sometimes are some of my favorite ones to go to as well because you meet other local lash artists and it's just a different experience. It's more intimate and I just really like local smaller events too. So like don't sleep on those if you're like feeling the same way or wondering what to go to. There's a time and a place for every event type, whether it's in person, online, a big event, a small event, a local event, you travel to an event. There's just a time and a place for all of them. And it's really just about deciding like what your needs are as a business owner and which events can meet those, which education or courses you can take that meet those needs. Another comment that I got, which I thought this one was really interesting and I totally agree with her. She said, I think a lot of those people who have the voices that should be heard are quietly busy hustling. And in my opinion, that's very true. There's so many lash artists out there who are freaking killing it, who are doing amazing, and they're running their businesses and they don't necessarily have the bigger platform at the bigger events or, training all over the country and doing all of the things. They're so successful in their own way, in their own right. I've had people like this on the show before. That's why I try and have like lash artists just come share their story, how they grew, what they've done. And also people who speak at Lash Biz Babes online conference at our online event every year. Like Lash Bestie Janessa. We also had Marissa. I don't remember what year she spoke. It was last year or the year before that. Both of them have such incredible local businesses and they're absolutely thriving and super successful in their own ways. And those are the types of voices that I would love to see that more and more in the industry. People like them getting a platform to speak and have their voices be heard and like amplify that, right? They're amazing, incredible lash artists and business owners. So I absolutely agree with her. I think this is very true. A lot of people who should have their voices heard and who have incredible stories and experiences to help other lash artists are quietly busy hustling. But I think that's where, like, for change to be made in the industry, which obviously a lot of people are craving to see this change happen, like, we have to start speaking up. We have to start using our voices and sharing our stories and our experience and our expertise. It doesn't matter if you're not a quote unquote big name or you don't have a huge following or any of those things. Like, your voice, your opinion, your experience, your expertise still matters. It absolutely matters. And people can learn from you. Lash artists can learn from you. Business owners can learn from you. That's part of what I want to do this episode. I would love to hear more people speak up, be the change that you want to see. And like the change that I would love to see is more people like speaking up, using their voices, sharing their experiences, sharing their expertise, like we've been talking about. So that's what I just want to encourage you to do. Like, don't be afraid to speak up. And if you are in that era of quietly busy hustling to grow your business, there's still ways to speak up and let your voice be heard and be that change that you want to see. Because if we want to see new people speaking at events or educating or getting opportunities or having their voice be heard or helping to influence and shape the industry moving forward, like, it's never going to happen unless you speak up and use your voice. So I think podcasting, in my opinion, is one really amazing and great way to let your voice be heard, to let your stories be heard, your expertise, and to help shape the industry moving forward, because you can still be busily hustling in your lash business, teaching, educating, taking clients, whatever it is that you are killing it at, and have a podcast and let your voice be heard. Because your voice and your stories are needed, and nothing is going to change until more of us start speaking up and until more of us start sharing our experiences. So that's the second thing that I wanted to talk about today. Podcasting is such a great way to put yourself out there, to let your voice be heard, to build your platform more, and especially to be able to like grow your platform outside of just social media and constantly having to make short form content every single day to build your brand and get your name out there, right? Podcasting for me has just been such a great way to do that. This podcast actually turns 4 years old this week, which is so exciting. Happy 4 years to us here at Lash Biz Babes. And to you, like, you guys have been so incredible and amazing and supportive. And I feel like most of you would probably have absolutely no idea who I was if I had never started a podcast. Like, I was obviously posting on social media a lot. I had a lot of lash artist friends across the country, in my local area, in my state. Like, it's not like I didn't have a network within the industry, but having a podcast amplified that and helped me to grow and reach new people. And it's also nice because it's what's considered like an evergreen piece of content. Like, when you post on Instagram, that has basically a shelf life at some point. I think TikTok does a little bit better at having longer shelf lives where like people will see your video for a long time, even after you posted it. I have videos from last year in 2025 that still get views and likes and comments and shares consistently all of the time because it has a longer shelf life on TikTok. But on Instagram, typically most posts, they're going to get seen for maybe a couple weeks after you post it. And then it's like old news and moving on to something else. But that's the nice part about podcasting, and that has an even longer shelf life. People can be finding your episodes from like years ago and start following you, start listening to you, and you're able to build that know, like, trust factor with them that we talked about on the show before. So especially if you are like an educator or a brand owner, or you're just someone who wants to share your experiences, you want to help others in the industry, like you want to become more known or become an educator or become a bigger name in the industry, let people know who you are. Maybe you want to speak at events, you want to teach even just in your local area or across the country. Maybe you have an online course or products that you want to get out there. Podcasting is such a great way to be able to do that. And honestly, there was a point last year, which I had already started the podcast by this point, but there was just a point last year where I just felt like God wanted me to have my voice be heard. And that was just a sign for me that I'm on the path that I'm supposed to be. And I want to also mention with that like I absolutely respect everyone's different beliefs. Like I know not everybody believes in God, and I think that's absolutely okay. You are allowed to feel how you feel, believe what you believe in, but that's part of my story. That's part of what I believe in and part of what I feel like has influenced my path in the industry. So that's something that I do share about from time to time, but I just wanted to put out there that I do respect if you have different beliefs than me. That's absolutely okay, and I still love and adore you just the way that you are. And for me, I just really felt like God wanted my voice to be heard. And that's why I started like really trying to speak at more events and put myself out there more. Because honestly, going to events and speaking at those things, you really don't get paid for it. Honestly, there is obviously a return to it in other ways, but most events are not directly paying you for it. And you spend a lot of time and money going to these things. I think I spend at least a minimum of $1,000 or more per event, just depending on what the expenses are, but just like travel, hotel, rental car, those expenses minimum $1,000 or more. And but with that, just being able to speak and, have your voice be heard, and I want that for other people too. Like I want others to be able to do that. And the last 4 years of my business, I just feel like podcasting has been such a huge influence on the trajectory of my business, the growth of it, and I want that for more people in the industry. In the spirit of being the change that I want to see in the industry, because I do want to see this change happen. I think we do need fresh voices and new perspectives and new people helping us kind of mold and shape the way forward, and especially those who have the hands-on experience of being a lash artist and actually doing the things. I would love to see more people start podcasts in the industry and speak up and let their voice be heard, because truly, when you go out and look at it, there's not a lot of beauty industry podcasts in general. So, especially if you narrow that down to like just lash podcasts, just aesthetic podcasts, just hair podcasts, there's really not that many out there. And not only that, but when you go through and start looking at how many have been active recently and who post new episodes consistently, that number drops to even fewer. There are very few podcasts within the lash industry that are actually active and consistent. And I feel like this is a gap where your voice and your stories and your expertise can be heard, because there's so many lash artists around the world who are turning, and estheticians, hairstylists, beauty pros in general, who are turning to podcasts to help them learn and grow, to help them better themselves, to entertain them during appointments, all of those things. Like you're listening to a podcast right now. So obviously you are part of that group, right? And so I feel like podcasting is just such a great way to reach those who you can help. And if you're like, well, I've only been lashing for a few years, blah, 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 like you can still help a lash artist who's 3 years behind you or who was in the same shoes you were when you got started. Like you don't have to have been lashing for 10 plus years to start a podcast or to be an expert in the industry. You can still help people who are 10 steps behind you. And that's one of the biggest mindset gaps or hurdles that I feel like I had to get over to start educating and putting myself out there more in the industry, because it got to a point where I wanted to educate more. I wanted to help other lash artists more, but then you have a lot of voices in the industry who are like, oh my gosh, you can't be doing that unless you've been lashing for this amount of time or you have this amount of expertise and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of these people got started educating when they had only been lashing for like 6 months, or they started their product line and they'd been lashing for, months or a couple years at most. So it's like, it doesn't matter how long, like, obviously you need experience. You need to be able to have the expertise to help other people. But the point of this is like, there's no set standard of you have to have been doing this, XYZ, have this expertise, know this, that, and the other to be able to help people around you. You can help the baby lash artist that you were when you first started right now with the expertise and the knowledge and the experience that you have. And don't let other people bring you down or make you feel like you're not good enough or give you that imposter syndrome, because that's kind of how I felt when I was like wanting to get started. Was just like, well, what would this other person in the industry think? They would probably judge me, like putting yourself out there and all of that. But at the end of the day, we all start somewhere, and there are people who you can help with the expertise and the stories and the experiences that you have. And I think that's just where you have to teach from. It's not like you're trying to teach super advanced lash artists all these advanced things. Like, figure out where you're at in your journey, who you can help, and what you can teach them. Stay in your lane with that and do your thing. Because if you're teaching and you're sharing and you're helping from your lived experiences, who can come in and tell you that you're wrong on that? That's what you lived. That's what you experienced. There's no way you can be wrong on that, because that's what you went through. That's how you know what you know. Like, so that's what I've always just had to remind myself is like, my content, my podcasts, my reels, my TikToks, my posts are not for other lash artists who are 10 steps, 10 years ahead of me. It's for the lash artists who are in the same shoes that I was 5 years ago, who were in the same shoes I was 10 years ago when I very first got started in the industry, right? So, like, you just have to keep in perspective who your ideal students or clients are, who your ideal audience is, and how you can really help them, and stay in your lane on that and go for it. Like, put yourself out there. And it's kind of scary at first, especially with podcasting, because you're like, oh my gosh, I have to listen to my own voice and I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to get started, all the tech behind it. Like, there's just so much. And I've had people be like, well, I just don't know about hosting platforms, and I would have to keep up on social media stuff and recording and editing and all of those things. But like, there's ways to make that easy for yourself. But like, I have talked several people into starting their own podcasts in the industry, and I absolutely love it for them, because it gives them that outlet to let their voice be heard and to be the change that clearly so many people are desperate to see in the industry. And like, nothing changes until we start speaking up. Like, if you want to see new people speaking or educating or, being leaders in our industry, or you want to see fresh perspectives and people helping to guide and mold and shape the industry moving forward, we've got to be the change that we want to see. And so, because of this, I'm actually starting an 8-week coaching program. So it's a small group coaching program called Mic'd Up, because I do know what it feels like to want to start a podcast, but be overwhelmed by it and not know where to start. So, Mic'd Up, it's a podcasting program for beauty professionals. You don't just have to be a lash artist. You could be an esthetician, hairstylist, spray tan artist, nail tech, really anyone in the beauty industry who wants to step outside of your comfort zone, claim your voice in the industry, and like, maybe you feel called to do more than just work behind the chair, which there's nothing wrong with just working behind the chair, quote unquote, just. That's absolutely amazing. But if you're like, I'm feeling called to more, I'm feeling like I want my voice to be heard, I want to be more known in the industry, I want to educate, I want these opportunities, I want to have a bigger platform, this is for you. Like, this is for those who want to serve and educate and lead within the beauty community. So, Mic'd Up, it's an 8-week small group coaching experience for beauty professionals who, like I said, feel called to lead, educate, and expand beyond the service chair. You're ready to start and launch a podcast that builds authority, trust, and long-term impact. Because I'll tell you one thing that I've learned about podcasting is that it gives your audience something to binge on. Like, they can listen to 3, 4, 5, even more episodes at a time, or maybe they listen to you every week religiously. Trust me when I say that builds so much trust and authority with your audience. They want to hear what you have to say. They want to listen to you every week. And I just think it's such a great way to build trust, because you are sharing your stories and your experience and what the things that you've lived through and your perspective that you've gained from working hands-on with clients. Like, all of those things matter. This gives you the platform to share those things, and it builds so much trust with your audience. I think that's probably one of the number one things that the podcast has given me, is just such a tight-knit community and audience, and I absolutely love that. And I love everyone who has ever listened to even 30 seconds of the show. Like, I'm so grateful and so thankful for you all. So, what does Mic'd Up actually do for you? You're going to be guided step by step through discovering the why behind your podcast and the impact that you want to make, defining exactly who your show is for and how it serves them, clarifying your brand message, tone, and voice, and all of like your branding side of things, how to brand and market your podcast so that your podcast feels aligned and authentic, navigating the tech side of podcasting in a non-intimidating way. So you'll learn about everything from hosting platforms to microphones, recording equipment, and more. And along with that, understanding what equipment and platforms and tools that you actually need and what you don't need, especially when you're first getting started. And then growth strategies, marketing strategies, how to monetize your show, and then also building the mindset required to show up confidently even before you feel quote unquote ready. Because if you wait until things are perfect and you feel absolutely ready to go, you're not going to ever get started. Like it's never going to happen. And I think there's a post on, I think I've seen it on Instagram, probably on TikTok a few times as well, that says something like the first time you do anything, it's not going to be that great. Like your first few podcast episodes are probably not going to be the most perfect things ever, but like it's never going to get better until you try it and you get started with it. And then you get started and it keeps getting better and you learn more and you get more confident, you find your voice. Like it only gets better and better and better from there, but you have to start somewhere. And that's really the point of that portion of Mic'd Up is you're building the mindset required to show up confidently, to show up consistently, and to let your voice be heard even when you're scared or nervous to get started or you don't want to hear your own voice or imposter syndrome, all of those things. So the goal for this is that by the end of the 8-week program, you're going to have a clear plan to create and launch your podcast within 1 to 3 months. Honestly, the speed of how quickly you're able to launch depends on how fast you go through the different steps. Some people do it faster than others. That's absolutely great. But this is also going to give you realistic goals for your first year of podcasting and the confidence to launch a podcast that builds trust, expands your reach beyond social media, and positions you as a respected voice in the lash and or beauty industry. And not only that, but the tools and the systems that you need to show up consistently. Because that's the other problem I see with podcasts. They'll get started, they'll do their first few episodes, maybe they'll last for like 6 months or so. They kind of fall off the wagon, which I'm not absolutely zero judgment on that. I totally freaking understand and get it. But like if you want to start a podcast that stays consistent and helps you reach the goals that you want to have with it, I'm going to help you build the systems out and the structure that you need to stay consistent on your show, with your show. So what's included with the program? So it's 8 weeks of small group coaching. This also includes like individual support as needed. So if you have questions or need like some one-on-one time with like, this is what I want to do, can you give me your feedback or whatever that looks like, I'll be there and able to support you with that. We're going to go from March 9th to May 1st. So it starts here in a few weeks or maybe a couple weeks by the time this podcast episode comes out. Each week, there's going to be a 1-hour group coaching call on each Monday of the program. I don't have the exact times for those set yet because we're going to decide what works best for a majority of the group. So hopefully most everybody can be there live. You're going to get weekly tasks and homework to implement what you're learning. So if we're talking about like naming and creating your show and like, or the visual branding or whatever, you might get a worksheet that week that helps you kind of like map out what that looks like or helps you figure out what your colors and your fonts and all those things are, or like, you know, your brand messaging helps you lay out what your brand messaging is, or your equipment. Okay, here's the equipment checklist, things like that. So you'll have worksheets to help you implement. There's also going to be a Voxer group chat, which I have done. If you've been a student of mine in the past, you're probably familiar with this for my group coaching programs because I love to use Voxer. So it's basically kind of just like a little walkie-talkie app. You can do text or voice memos in it. And so we're able to have a group chat there. And that's for like ongoing support and questions for Monday through Friday during business hours. So if you have a question, you're working on homework, something comes up, you need something, you need support, maybe you have a win or you're excited about something, you can share that in the group chat and we can all keep in touch and stay connected in between calls. And then also you will get lifetime access to all the call replays and the PDF support. So everything is going to be recorded. If you can't watch it live or if you want to watch a replay later on, you will have access to that. And then there's also PDF supports within this. So let me tell you what those are going to be. So there's going to be a podcast equipment checklist. There will also be a podcast launch timeline template, an episode planning worksheet, and then a guest pitch email template of like what you can send to potential guests to invite them to come on the show. I have like outlines that I'll use to outline what that looks like for the guests and all the systems of inviting them on, getting them booked, and all of the things like getting them the info, getting the information you need from them so that you'll have like all of that information already ready to go for you. And then I just kind of wanted to go through a quick outline of the actual program and what we'll be talking about each of the weeks, just because it is a bigger investment to join this. And I want you to know like what you're going to get out of it and how this is actually going to help you be able to start your podcast and let your voice be heard. Phase one, this is going to be activation and clarity. Week one, we're going to talk about the why and your leader within. So this is going to be kind of talking about why your voice matters in the beauty industry, clarifying your long-term vision, whether that's education, products, mentorship, like what's your long-term vision and how is the podcast a piece that's going to help you reach those goals, right? Because all in all, it has to make sense. Podcasting is a big time and money investment, and it needs to make sense in your long-term goals, not just necessarily something that you want to do for fun, which there's nothing wrong with wanting to do it for fun. I just think it's a lot of time and effort, and it needs to fit into your business plan long-term somewhere. The next thing for that one, kind of defining the impact that you want to make with your podcast and releasing perfectionism. So we'll talk about some of that mindset stuff that week. Week two, it's who it's for and positioning. So defining your listener clearly, what problem does your show solve, how your show is different from others, and then naming and positioning your podcast. So the next thing we're going to talk about is your message and your brand alignment on weeks 3 and 4. So week 3, you're going to be learning about messaging pillars and episode strategy, deciding what your 3 to 5 core content pillars are, mapping out your first 10 episode ideas. We're going to talk about solo versus guest strategy and creating value-driven content without burnout. So really being able to stay consistent with good episodes that really help people without burning out. Week 4, we're going to talk about brand voice and authority. So we're going to talk about branding your show and creating your brand kit with templates, speaking confidently without scripts, building trust through storytelling, and how to gain confidence in a clear voice when recording. Especially if you are someone who's like, I don't like to hear my own voice. I don't love talking on camera. I don't like, just recording. Maybe that's newer to you. That week will help you overcome those hurdles. So week 5 and 6, we're going to be talking about tech and setup. So week 5, tech without overwhelm. We're going to talk about equipment, and we'll talk about like budget options versus like mid or high range options, recording and hosting platforms, and editing options. Let's go through what that looks like to do it yourself or to outsource, and like what platforms you might need to do it yourself, what that process looks like, the time commitment, all of those things. Like batch recording, because that's going to make your life so much easier. And I'm not always super great at batch recording, but let me tell you, when I do it, so much better. Week 6, launch plan, realistic growth strategies, and monetization options. So what the time and commitment looks like, batch recording strategy and consistency. We're going to map out your first 90-day launch strategy, what your year 1 growth expectations should be, or, kind of mapping out what your objectives and goals are for the first year. And then last thing for that week is monetization options and how to make your podcast a consistent revenue stream. This could look like course or service sales. Like I've gotten social media clients from the podcast before. I've sold online courses from the podcast before, ebooks, things like that. You could also do sponsorships and ads. You could get speaking opportunities, affiliate links. There's all kinds of different ways that you can incorporate monetization in the show. This is actually something that I'm still continually working on for the show myself right now. Like I've made money on it throughout the years, but I'm trying to really focus on it even more so that it pays for itself, because I have outsourced it for the last couple of years, and the cost does, there is a cost involved with that. There's an investment involved with that. So I want to get it to the point where it's paying for itself. But there's so many different ways you can make money from a podcast. So we're going to talk about your different options and what those look like. The next thing we're going to be talking about weeks 7 and 8, the last couple of weeks, is confidence and execution. So week 7, we're going to be talking about mindset and visibility. So imposter syndrome, showing up before you feel ready, handling criticism, because one of the parts about having your voice be heard and amplifying your platform is that you will at some point get negative feedback or opinions or people who don't agree with you. And so you kind of have to be ready to know how to navigate that and not let that get you down. That's just that's how like this is working. My voice is being heard. Like I'm reaching more people. I'm reaching new audiences. And sometimes that can come with like a fear of that visibility because you don't want to get that feedback. but like you can't really grow and become that leader and the expert in the industry and to help other people the way that you want to, and help other lash artists the way that you want to, without having your voice be amplified like that. So we're going to talk about navigating those situations. And then last for that week is owning your voice and expertise. Week 8, just kind of wrapping things up, launch prep and celebrations. We're going to have a final Q&A, tech troubleshooting, accountability commitments, set your official launch date. We're going to kind of have some celebration on that call, so I'm really excited for it. But that gives you a really good overview of what each week looks like, what you're going to be learning. Really, you're going to walk through every single step of creating and launching an actual podcast that's like not just like thrown together last minute and thrown out there to the world, which I'm not necessarily saying there's anything wrong with that. But if you want to have a successful show that stays consistent and shows up long term and really helps you reach your business goals, like we're going to walk you through every step of what that looks like. Because like I said, podcast has really been the catalyst for my business the last 4 years to get speaking opportunities, to get my online courses out there more, to reach coaching clients, social media management clients, and just to really help other lash artists. That's really what this show was all about to begin with, is I wanted to help people. I was a lash artist who turned to podcasts to be able to grow my business and help me learn and grow as a lash artist. And I wanted the opportunity to do the same. I always told myself, once I figure this out, I want to help other people be able to do this and make it easier for them than it was for me. And so that's what the show has really been all about. And also because of that, I've been blessed with so many other opportunities to be able to grow my business, to have speaking opportunities, to be able to have my voice be heard, to be able to help other people. But it all starts with having a well thought out, well put together podcast that goes through all of the steps that I'm going to help you go through in these 8 weeks of Mic'd Up. Like I said, for me, podcasting was the start of a world full of new opportunities in my business, whether it was making a lasting impact of the lives of other lash artists and beauty professionals, getting speaking opportunities, booking new coaching clients or social media management clients, selling online courses. Obviously, we host our yearly event as well. Like that started with the podcast too. We've been able to work with big name brands, have our voice be heard. And not only that, but like there's people who listen to the podcast in over 65 different countries around the world. People worldwide know the Lash Biz Babes podcast and know the brand of Lash Biz Babes because of this. It's such a great way to have your voice be amplified to new audiences and reach new people and be able to help them. And podcasting really opened the door to building a lasting legacy and a worldwide known brand in the lash and beauty industry. And so starting a podcast for yourself, this is your chance to open that door for yourself, to let your voice be heard and known, and to build long-lasting trust and impact across the lash industry, and to be the change that obviously so many people want to see in the industry. If you are listening to this episode before March 9th, 2026, I would love to have you join us. If you are like, I want to do this. This is me. Like, I feel like you're speaking to me on this, and maybe you want to start a podcast. I would love to have you join us. So if you're listening in February, we do have early bird pricing for this. So it's $888 and it's split up into 4 monthly payments of $222 each. After March 1st and beyond, so March 1st to March 8th, the pricing is going to go up to $1,200 and that's going to be split up into 4 monthly payments of $300. So depending on when you're listening, you'll be able to know like what the pricing is like and what that looks like to join us. If you're listening to this after the fact, after these dates have gone by, I am hoping to do another round of it later in the year after I get back from maternity leave. So stay tuned for that. Stay in touch. Let me know if you're interested. But we only have 10 spots available for this first round of it, and one of them is already taken as of the time of recording this. So definitely go check out the show notes to get details and reserve your seat in the program if you are interested in joining. If you do have questions, please reach out to me on Instagram at XOEricaStram. But I think really just the point and moral of the story of this episode is that the industry is amazing and it has so many incredible leaders and educators. We've done so many great things and innovation and been able to grow and evolve so much over the last, 20, 25 years since it's been a thing in the United States specifically. But there's still more progress to be made. There's still more change to be made. We are really a baby industry still, especially compared to industries like the hair industry or the nail industry. They have been around so much longer than we have. as lash artists. And so your experiences and abilities and talents within the industry matter. And that's going to help shape the industry moving forward. And a podcast is just one of the ways that you can let your voice be heard and that you can help shape the industry moving forward and that you can be the change that we want to see in the industry to have more voices be heard, to have more diversity, to have more perspectives from different corners and walks of life in the industry. So, regardless of that, whether you're like, podcasting is for me or podcasting isn't for me, Erica, that's okay. Point of this, let your voice be heard, speak up. Don't be afraid to just start where you're at, even if that looks like just posting on social media or sharing your voice more in your local area. Everything makes a difference. We already know that with our clients, we make a difference one client at a time. It's the same thing with this. You can make a difference one client at a time, one student at a time. You can make a difference one post at a time, one podcast episode at a time. But the point is, if we want to see change and we want to help shape our industry into something incredible and amazing and long lasting and sustainable moving forward, we have to start speaking up. So I love you. I hope you have the best week, and I will talk to you next week.